peeps, good afternoon to everybody. Hi guys, hello Aaron, hello Veritas, how are you guys? So excited to be here one Monday more. Oh, it's so warm though, it is so warm. Hi Alejandro, welcome everybody to this dwelling of art and history and Iranian and Mesopotamian stuff. We don't know exactly what this is already. I'm gonna sound... I'm a broken record, I know, but it is so warm in here. So warm. Not coping well. I am definitely not coping well with this. No, I would be permanently in the shower. I would be permanently under frozen water. But this is what we got. This is what we got. This is what we came here for. What could be done? Nothing. Literally nothing could be done. So, you guys good? The warmth. And on top of everything, I'm a little bit of a dumbass because I didn't put my tea in the fridge long enough. Because, again, a little bit of story time before diving into the topic. Because I know you guys like, and you enjoy hearing me speak about the disaster that my life is. So basically, I made a teapot of cold tea. It was supposed to be cold tea, but to make it properly, you need to make the tea first. Let it set, let it brew, then let it cool down completely, and then put it in the fridge. So I did that, but I drank the teapot this morning because I was hot and the tea was very nice. So I had to do that all over again, and I didn't do it with the same amount of time as, you know, the preparation time. So these one didn't cool down and I put it in the fridge anyway. So it is not as cold as I would like it to be. And I know, yeah, I like it. I'm really liking it, and it looks very good in this glass. It just looks fantastic in here. I don't know if you can see it. You can appreciate, but it's a very beautiful shade of purple. You can see my computer on the reflection. Before starting, and as always, thank you to all the people who subscribe to the channel. Thank you to all the people who follow the channel. Thank you so much for being here with me. Thank you to my patrons who are there, you know, back in the backstage helping me out with these things. I really appreciate their job. And yeah, just that's basically it. I don't have a lot of information to give you guys today. Oh no, I could ask you something though. We could. Yeah, for example, this is completely unrelated to what we're going to talk about. I can make it related though. Do you have a favorite animal? And if you do, what is it? I like knowing my people. I like knowing the people who follow me. And I love animals. The dog, says Pichur. Hello, Pichur. Oh, the dog is a pretty neat animal. Oh, the falcon, yay. Of course, I like cats, but I have to choose maybe a platypus. They are so cute though. They are very cute. Before starting the live stream, if in case you guys don't know yet, I am Spanish, and in Spain there is a very big effort. And hello, Nucus. So the effort is being put to recover the population of lynx, of white lynx in the north of the peninsula. And one of my friends sent me a video because new cubs were born quite recently. And I really like lynx, I like them, but they are not my favorite animal. I'm not gonna tell you my favorite animal because I don't have one. I just like all birds, all animals. I can't choose, I'm sorry, I can't choose. That was a little bit random, but I like to know you guys a little bit. So today's tea in my amazing Skull of My Enemy's cup is I actually have it here. Yes, I do love all insects. I am not fond of cockroaches, but I understand they have a right to live. So they were in the planet before I was. So hey, who's the invader? Who's the intruder? The tea we're drinking today, we is me, myself, and I, and all the voices in my head. And it's a blueberry peach, and I already had this mixture because it's so good to have cold. I wish it was colder though. I wish I was more patient. I am not patient. It's blueberry peach, and we have apple pieces, hibiscus, rosehip, blue pea flowers, freeze-dried blueberry, freeze-dried peach, and orange peel. Gonna be so sad when this runs out. It's only 20 grams, but I think I am making the most out of it. All right. Who is here for the chaos? Who's here for the blood? Who's here for the massacre? Who's here for the violence? Because today we're going to be discussing the Assyrian royal hunt, which is possibly one of the most violent sports from antique time. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the ride. I think it's very interesting because you really get to know the people in the past by the sports they play, the hobbies they had, and also the way they represented said activities in art and in text as well. I have a lot of super interesting information for you. I cannot wait to share it. But before starting, let me do a disclaimer to myself. Okay, let me tell you something. I am an art historian. I'm a professional. Just because I am explaining to you a certain episode, happening, event, or passage of history doesn't mean that I am neither supporting it or justifying it. Not at all. I'm just explaining it because it's my job. This is what we art historians and other historians do. As simple as that is. Of course, an activity as brutal as the royal hunt, as the lion royal hunt, would be in nowadays, like in my today's head, absolutely unthinkable and inadmissible. It won't be permitted. It won't be allowed. But that doesn't mean we cannot talk about something that happened in the past, from here, from the present. So you really need to think of it as me doing my job, not me justifying the bloody killing of animals for fun. Okay? Cool. Let's dive into it. I don't ask, it is like fox hunting, but for posh Assyrian? No, it's not. It's absolutely not like that. So, before diving into this, we need to set up some time and geographical boundaries first. Where are we going to be working with? When are we going to be working with? And who are we going to be working with? We're going to talk about the Assyrians. And who are these people? Who are the Assyrians actually? So this famous and mighty empire was once a tiny city in what today is the north of Iraq. And the city was called Ashur, like the main god of the pantheon and like so many other kings in the list. Believe me, you're gonna hear that name a lot. Like a quality mark or a quality label. Ashur, check. The time frame we will be working with is right, so actually, there were two so-called Assyrian empires. The first one started around the 14th century before Common Era, gaining power, becoming strong, but then 200 years later, it just collapsed. It disappeared from the Mesopotamian scenery. However, like the Backstreet Boys, and that should give you a hint about how truly old I am, they made a comeback. Like a freaking boomerang. Mesopotamia was just chilling, enjoying existence, and by the 10th century before Common Era, the Assyrian kingdom was like, boom, baby, here we are again. So by the 7th century, the great king Ashurbanipal, we will be dealing with him later, controlled basically everything from Western Mediterranean shores, that what we call Shams in Eastern Studies, to the west of Iran. Let me tell you, that was vast. It was huge. It was one of the greatest empires ever existed. We're talking around 600 before Common Era, give or take. So give the Assyrians some credit. So this second wave, the comeback, tell me, I see you, Kiwi. Tell me why ain't nothing, na, na, na. I don't know the song. But I know there's people in the chat that know the song quite well. Not gonna name any names, but we know the song. So yeah, as I was saying, this second wave of Assyrian power was the Neo-Assyrian Empire. But Assyriologists, because yes, that is a thing, and scholars generally refer to them as just the Assyrian Empire. We know we are dealing with the Second Empire unless specified. So now you know too, when we say the Assyrian Empire, we're actually talking about the second wave, which is something like from apocalyptic literature. I don't know. So you may ask yourself, how did this happen? How did they get to rule over the whole Mesopotamia in such a way we would consider consistent? Well, they did it by force. They were brutal. Or so do the sources, both visual and textual, tell us. Let me pause here for a second. So, when gathering info for this stream, I had made a note to myself, I need to tell you this. I came across a page with a post titled "Terrorists of the Ancient World," quote unquote. And freaking demon on top of a flaming stick, did I laugh like a mad person for 5 minutes. Just the fact that they used that anachronism still lightly amuses me. It's like, okay, so let me discuss something about anachronism before carrying on. Just don't do that. That's it. Do not apply labels, states, or names or concepts invented in the modern world to something as far as the ancient Mesopotamian world. Just don't. It is not correct. It is not professional. This is not how we deal with history. I understand we can have a laugh sometimes calling people names or labeling them such and such. I just did. I compared the Assyrian Empire to the Backstreet Boys. But, I mean, bear in mind, this is for understanding and comedic reasons. I'm guilty of that, but it's for comedy. The terrorist article was serious. Holy Satan in a flamenca dress. It was so serious. And I still laugh if I think of it. But yeah, just try not to judge from a nowadays lenses the past and how they experience certain things. This is not how it works. So yeah, nah. What was I? Oh yeah, the brutality of the Assyrian Warfare. Thank God I have a script over here, because if not, there's so many things I wouldn't remember them. So the Assyrian Warfare was described in many different sources and even portrayed in art. They were very proud of the brutality. They embraced it. They encouraged it. And one of the examples I'm going to show you is the siege of Lachish, which, by the way, appears in the Bible. There we are. Whoop, there we have him. There we have him. So just contemplate this amazing relief of Assyrian soldiers flaying 2 naked prisoners in the middle of the battlefield, because why not? Also, I forgot to say this, but all the material, the visual material I will be using for today's live stream comes from the British Museum. All of these panels that I am using are either they were taken pictures during the massive exhibition they had. I think it was 2 years ago, either 2 years ago or last year, about Ashurbanipal, and they put together an incredible amount of these reliefs. But also, for some part of my life I lived in London, so I could go see these reliefs by myself, because the British Museum, the entrance is for free. So yeah, I know these reliefs quite well. So I'm going to show you another one. There you see. Do you see the corpses floating in the river? Like over here. This is a celebration parade after a battle has been won. And this was in the walls of a palace, let me remind you. So, yeah. They really sound like fun people, don't they? So, as I was saying, the Assyrians encouraged and motivated brutality and the very cruel warfare. They presented an amazing military power back in the day. That was because they had a professionally trained army, advancing engineering skills, and apparently very effective tactics management. And on top of everything, they were ruthless punishers with the conquered lands. We're not going to dive deeper into this now, but I think it is worth noting that the Assyrian culture was mainly a fighting, military-oriented society. Military campaigns were the thing. You know what I'm talking about. And if you are a little familiar with military cultures and societies, you probably know these already. But was that Syrian confetti's corpses in the river? Yes. I guess. So again, if you're familiar, if you like military history, or you're familiar with warfare history and military-oriented societies, you already know this. But something fundamental to keep such a structure is discipline, hierarchy, and a very rigid one where everybody knows their place and there is no room for discussion. And at the summit of this mountain sits the king, the absolute ruler of everything. So, okay, to understand the lion hunt, which was a royal activity, we need to understand a little better the position of the king, which the position of the king was in the Assyrian society. The king was basically absolute. That's it. The power they held was indeed absolute. They were considered to rule upon absolutely everything and everyone. Do you remember Ashur? I mentioned him before. So he was the main god for the Assyrians, the head of the pantheon, and kings were considered to have been directly designated by Ashur to perform his rule on earth. So the king was a representative of the main god and had to carry out all his tasks. Conquering and killing were a fundamental part of it. Absolutely. And the king, just the figure of the king, represented order, and the rest, the outside world, was chaos. So not only the king was thought to hold the power to establish the Assyrian rulership, he was expected to. You are not gonna let chaos run loose around your tidy, neat city. What are you? Of course not. And in doing this expansion and this conquest, the king was presented threefold, in three ways: a leader, a warrior, and a hero. Ashur, the god, would have bestowed upon the king amazing strength, virility, and power, and those should be publicly displayed. And those should be constantly publicly displayed. Let me tell you something. Alright, so you are not a suitable Assyrian king if you dare to be humble. So, as I was saying, one of the king's main personas was the warrior, the almighty, undefeated fighter capable of erasing any foe from the surface of earth. And they cared about these requirements being covered since very early. I'm going to show you an image here. The image I'm going to show you now, it comes from the royal hunt, but it is very illustrative of what I'm going to say. Is it this one? Yes. This is the royal chariot, and you can see actually a poor lion fella over here. Yeah. So these requirements, as I was saying, were cared to be covered from very, very early. The crown prince, who is the prince that has been designated to be the next in the succession line, went through the same rough training as his soldiers did. They were trained in riding chariots like this one, in archery, and ride cavalry horses, among others. It was a very strict military training. And this was because normally kings would lead their troops into battle. They would be there with them, occasionally in the front line even. Although Ashurbanipal, which is the one presented here, he never did. He stayed in the back, but he presented himself as he would do that, as he was doing that, which is something very fun to me, because again, propaganda. Yeah, this is a very nice relief to see. If you have an occasion to see all these things, just go to the British Museum. It's a good activity to do on a I don't know, rainy afternoon, to play it safe. So how does the royal hunt, the activity of the royal hunt, fit into all of this? There's so many things to cover, but let's start with understanding what was the role of the lion versus the role of the king, which we just covered. So we said the king represented order, right? Well, the lion was the animal ruler of chaos, the same embodiment of havoc and destruction, of everything that was against what the Assyrian society stood for and believed in. Basically, the lion was the king's nemesis. It represented the whole natural world and also the foreign world, though not only the animal kingdom. Just bear in mind, for the Assyrians, their cities, especially the capital, were a haven for civilization and righteousness, and everything that fell out of those cities was considered the periphery, and therefore hostile, very hostile, and therefore susceptible of being eliminated, if you know what I mean. And that goes to humans and animals equally. We're going to stick with the animals for this occasion. To understand the demonized, this demonized vision of the lion, we need to travel back in time, really back when lions were super abundant, especially in the Assyrian lands. So now we think about lions and we possibly picture these amazing documentaries shot in Central Africa, sometimes in Egypt, because that is where the lions in our modern world belong to, the savannah. However, the Central Asia area, the plains of Central Asia, in Iran, in Iraq, they were fully occupied by lions. Lions were one of the most abundant creatures back in the time, and we know that because in every single society, you keep to just go over the whole societies, they all portray some kind of a feline, a very big feline in the art. And sometimes this feline is not a lion per se, it can be panthers, they can be leopards, but I think what I'm trying to say here is that just because today lions are not that abundant and they just don't run loose here and there, that doesn't mean they went back in time. When I mean abundant, when I say abundant, I really mean abundant, because sometimes the remaining texts speak about them as something as worrying as a plague. There was a problem with overpopulation of lions. That's what we're talking about. There were too many lions in the world for the humans to live. So yeah, the pigeons of the ancient world, probably there were, I am thinking, this is completely off topic, but if there were more big felines, there will be less pigeons one day. They will eat them. Let's bring back the lions. I'm just saying. So the lion packs, everything I'm saying here comes from text. I do not read Assyrian or Sumerian, but I do read all the languages, and I worked with translations of sources and with some curators of museums to bring in this information. So rest assured, I know what I'm talking about. So in the texts, we see them portrayed as a very big threat for human life. For example, lion packs would block the roads and attack the caravans and the travelers, and moreover, they will hunt and prey so much that they will finish with the livestock for humans. Humans could not eat meat because the lions would have eaten it first. And as you can imagine, the threat they represented for headsmen and shepherds was great. Just imagine going round in the plain, just, you know, to the fields with your flock of, I don't know, sheep, for example. Sheep were quite common. And then a bunch of very hungry young lions appears in the horizon. The hell do you do? But running for your life. What are you gonna do? You're gonna stay and fight the lions with your stuff? Are you following me? So, since the king represented not just the order, the divine order, because remember all the bestowing from Ashur and all the gods and blah blah blah, and at least the if you're Gilgamesh, then yes, Gilgamesh is an idiot. And if you don't know why Gilgamesh is an idiot, there's another video on that. I will put the link somewhere. Thank you, Pichur, for using the emote. I really like the emote. I don't like Gilgamesh, but I like the emote. So yeah, the king as the representative of the divine order, and at least under the Assyrian standard, the representative of civilization, these actions could just not be left unattended. The lion's actions I'm referring to. And it was the king's responsibility to ensure security and peace in the land he ruled upon. So what they would normally do is send in troops, sometimes go themselves, to eliminate the lions. I highlight the sometimes thing. We don't know. And they could kill them in the sport. I mean, once they were out, they could kill them. But they could also capture them and exhibit them in their palaces and private gardens as another symbol of power. We will talk about the gardens later, don't worry. And of course, they could capture the lions for the purpose of future shows of the royal hunt. And as there was no room for humility in the Assyrian throne, every single one of these hunts would be recorded in text in such a grandiloquent manner. For example, our friend Ashurbanipal said how he went out of the city chasing one of these lion packs, and he was alone in his royal chariot and he was fighting, but then the lions surrounded him, and him not fearing the result, do not fear the outcome. How are you going to fear the outcome when you are protected by two amazingly brutal deities, which are Ashur on one hand and then Inanna or Ishtar on the other? If you don't remember Inanna or Ishtar, we talked about her. She is the goddess of war, sex, love and military power. So exactly, Kiwi, bare-chested. So the text is recorded, it says that Ashurbanipal, which by the way talks about himself in first person, is like you hear an Ashurbanipal speaking when you read the text. He took down each lion with just a single arrow per lion, and how he really he goes over how he performed the task alone, without help, just of course always the divine support from Ashur, head of Pantheon, and of Inanna. Inanna was a very important deity for the Assyrians as well. So you see, humble people, very humble people. God. With his hair waving in the wind, most probably. Yeah, I like the image though. It's a little bit too romantic for me, but I like the image of Ashurbanipal sitting on his throne, dictating these to the scribe, and really believing what he was saying. Do you really think Ashurbanipal will be alone in this task? Do you really think he would go outside the city to hunt down a pack of lions that's annoying the shepherds, having a professionally military trained army and some soldiers to deal with the task? Do you really think so? I love Mesopotamia so much. 25? More like 250. Sure. I really like, you know, this is not off topic completely, but you know how many times I've repeated that people are people no matter the time and no matter the time frame, they still feel and behave as people. And I'm just wondering what the face of the scribe writing this pack of bull would be. You know, the king dictating his charade and just, you know, boasting himself so much, and then the scribe bit like, sure, you copy that? I did, I got that one, That was just something to think upon, that I'm living with you here. God, my head. Let's dive into it. Let's dive into the topic of this. What is that, Nukas? In the wise word of Gaius, to smile and clap, to smile and clap. Gaius is my spirit animal. I thought, you know, this is from the show Merlin. When I was younger, I thought I was Merlin, but then you grow up and you realize you've been Gaius all this time. It's like with Uncle Iroh in Avatar. So, the royal hunt. There is a key word to understand the royal hunt as a whole, and that word is propaganda. Absolutely everything in this so-called sport was intentional, carefully calculated, and designed to portray the king as an undefeated heavenly representative of the gods, as a triumphant warrior, as a conqueror. I don't have sound effects, but I'm gonna put here like some cheering or something, like way the crowds cheer, yeah. So let's explain now what the actual royal hunt was about. The first thing to know when we talk about the royal hunt is that we are referring to an indoors event, an event that took place inside the city walls, a stage spectacle for the citizens to see. So going outside the limits of the empire to clean the plains and killing lions is not the royal hunt. The theatrical show is. So this hunt was a big choreographed event. Massive. I cannot imagine the amount of money that would be put into this. So they would get lions from the wilderness, or even breed them in the city and put them in cages in a white space, perhaps like an arena. Let me show you the cages, because we have, where is it? You see here, the lion is in a cage and there's an assistant, there's a person who's opening the cage, and what they did was locking themselves inside the cage. The person is here. Can you see the cage? The person's inside. So yeah, they will lift the door for the lion to go out and then close themselves inside of the cage so the lion would not devour them. I've read that some scholars believed these people were kids, but that is just because the size of the representation. We should deal with these things carefully though. I am not sure they were kids. I do not support that theory. I haven't gotten deeper into it, but I do not believe it. I think they were adults, but in this case, the lion needs to appear big and strong and, you know, daunting, very scary. So you would portray him bigger, much bigger than an adult. So yeah, this is what they did. They just released the lions in a sort of like arena space. The space, I cannot emphasize this enough, the space was closed. The space was closed. It was an enclosure. It was there was a section that was designated for this, and then fully equipped king and myriad of assistants would walk in. I would not be surprised if music was playing and then the show begun. The king would take down each one of the lions and lionesses that were thrown at him, declaring himself once more as the true triumphant leader. And possibly the Final Fantasy victory fanfare will be playing, but that is just my own thought. Yay! Do you know which one is the Final Fantasy victory fanfare? It's the It's that one that goes da 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 da. That is the victory fanfare. My singing. What is that, Kiwi? The detail on the lion is realistic. Yes, I'm gonna show you later. I'm possibly gonna drop by some links so you guys can actually go see the reliefs and close-ups and stuff. The detail on these reliefs is insane. It is beautiful. It's one of the most detailed things I've seen. And yeah, we will discuss. I mean, I'm an art historian. We're gonna discuss about the art of this later. Do not worry. So yeah, the hunts were public spectacles. I'm gonna show you something. From what textual and visual sources tell us, they were a very big thing back in the day, like very popular. Here we have an image of the Ashurbanipal, of the palace of Ashurbanipal, which most of the reliefs come from. Do you see people? Do you see how people are gathering on a hill so they can have a better view? Everybody's there, and apparently these people over here, no, that one, these people on the top, they appear to be carrying drinks and food. So they were like making like a picnic so they could enjoy the show, just as you would go now to the stadium to cheer for your, in my case, basketball, but if you like football, your football team, or your fencing team if you are in uni. You know, they will bring snacks, they will bring food, this was such a popular activity. So yeah, they were open. They were not only publicly displayed, but they were announced, and people were encouraged to go see these shows, because again, it was a very big propagandistic theater and performance. So as I was saying, you can see these shows, these performances were heavily encouraged. People were heavily encouraged to go. So, and of course, coming back to our friend the king, of course, what we see in art and read in tablets portray this hunt once more as a solo activity. The king himself would perform the mighty deed alone. Hell no, hell no, that was a lot of crap. There was, as I said before, a bunch of people prepared to move and take action in case things were out of control, which honestly, it looks like sometimes did, because you are not careful with something if you haven't gotten a problem with that something before. And I'm speaking from from my own experience. So I'm going to show you actually what kind of people do we have there. We have these two. Here you can see some archers that are protected by a line of spearmen that are ready to take action in case things go crazy. And down here we have a person holding a dog. This dog is related to modern mastiff, so it is a war dog. It's a prey dog. These dogs were trained to hunt lions down. They were used in outdoors hunting. So you can see here, when you read the sources and you read that the king was supposed to do this by himself, it's like, Pati, no. Absolutely no. Yeah, it was a very it was a very big bowl. I can't say these things, but hey, how do I know? What do I know? I know nothing. I'm just throwing shade at Ashurbanipal. Pure decoration. The killing of the lions was done by the king himself on his own. Sure. Right, so Kiwi asks, if all is propagandistic, why do the reliefs show the rest of people? Because the rest of people in the reliefs are doing nothing. They are just there. Because they are a way of showing at the same time that the king controls a vast quantity of subjects that are just there, willing to die for their king, if the situation got out of hand, this is the note that everything's carefully studied here. So the subjects do not need to intervene because the king doesn't need that. King's got his shit out. I thought, oh, I cannot say those things. He's got the situation under control, the king. I'm speaking here too. But you know, it is good to know, to show the world that you have such an enormous amount of people willing to die for you in case you needed it. Just saying, like... I want to talk about the lions here, just for a moment. So there has been a lot of research on the lions, the animals themselves. For example, now scholars believe they could have been tamed or brought up in such a way they would have been docile. So the show would be less dangerous, because you should not forget the whole idea behind the royal lion hunt is, as we were discussing, the intention, the propaganda. You do not intend to put your king in a real danger. So here, the Assyrian king was defeating the embodiment of chaos in front of all of his subjects, declaring he would not be defeated or overpowered by the natural forces of evil. It must have been such a powerful demonstration of power. And of course, whatever the outcome, the kings made sure to claim a memorable victory, one that will remain in our memories and our hearts forever. And another reason these shows appear to be popular is their brutality, the violence. You know, people enjoy grotesque, people enjoy violence. I know I do. And with this, again, I'm not saying I agree with such an activity. Of course not. Something as horrifying for animals nowadays is absolutely unacceptable. But I can relate with people enjoying the brutal killing and the blood spilling. Have you guys played Mortal Kombat? Would you do that to a person on the street? That is my point. And I'm going to show you one. To me, when I went to London, this was one of the most impressive scenes I've ever seen in art history. It's a lion that's vomiting blood. It's literally bleeding its life out.
Fatality.
Poor thingy. The detail, I'm just gonna stay. If it makes you feel uncomfortable, just let me know and I'll put something else up. But the detail, the anatomy of the lion is so well studied, and that reveals that the artists most probably have seen or had access to real live lions in the day. The gesture, the lions, when you go to these Assyrian halls in the British Museum, the lions show such a variety of expressions in their faces. It is impressive. You have the fierce ones, you have the hurt ones like these ones, and then you have the dead ones who are completely in peace. Just like they look like big sleepy cats because they're gone. The energy's abandoned their bodies and they don't have the strength to put up a face anymore. So there's no tension in the muscles. Like in this case, in this lion over here, the legs, like the paws, are in full tension, and you can see the tendons and the bones just grabbing onto the earth. And at the same time, all this tension dilutes away with the jaw that's just dropped. Like there's no energy in the jaw because it's just done with fighting. He cannot take anymore. And the act back, I'm such a big fan of these reliefs. I used to spend hours with these reliefs when I lived in London. So I know them by heart. Like my pupils memorize them, like my brain's memorize the details, and I know what these things are. So it is impressive. It is very, very impressive to see how they portrayed such a variety of gestures in animals. Because on the other hand, let me check if I have... So here you can see the lion has an expression of pure anger and fury. However, the king, which is the person with the bow, it's absolutely unexpressive. He is expressionless. He does not express a single feeling. He is a statue. And so are the rest of the humans. Because the impassibility of this, just the fact that he could murder and kill without putting up a face made him closer to the gods that supposedly had bestowed upon him divine glory. No, normally the Assyrian reliefs do not show emotion. They show people smiling. We have Mesopotamian art, especially Assyrian reliefs, with people smiling, just a very light smile, and then people a little bit more serious, but that is basically it. So whenever you hear somebody saying that the Assyrians did not depict human emotion because they didn't know how to, just remember these lions. I think they knew how to, but they didn't want to. Why? There's a huge variety of reasons here, but that is not the topic today. Let's go back to speak about the royal hunt. That poor lion though. There's another lion. I did a whole essay on that lion, and it's that one that's already dead, and it looks like sleeping. It's very cute. It's very sad, but it's very cute. So, behind all these amazing spectacle, there was a powerfully rooted religious message, because the king, remember, was performing the divine will on a scale and under perfectly secured circumstances, but he was after all. So this was the ritual of cleansing the land, the eradication of evil, and the rise of the mighty gods in the conquered lands, because the lions could also represent the enemies from Assyria, foreigners and whatever they wanted to actually. And after the lions were killed, rituals and sacred performances took place. I'm gonna show you. I wish we could go all together to the British Museum so we could talk about this in like live. Whoop. There you go. So, here, this is not so commonly seen actually. This image is not normally shown, I don't know why. But here we have Ashurbanipal, which is the person in the front, offering the corpses to the god Ishtar. The king is pouring libations over the corpses of the animals. And in this case, he's pouring wine, and the offerings are for, again, Inanna or Ishtar. She is the warrior goddess. This is actually a beautiful scene, because it's very sad though, but it's, I don't know, I like it for some reason. So do you see the propagandistic message of all these performers, these images? The images of this hunt were carved and put up in the walls of the palaces for ambassadors and messengers and travelers and people generally to contemplate. They could contemplate the might and the violent power of the Assyrian king. It was all part of a carefully structured and studied advertisement program. And it seemed to work. And but again, I said that not only by killing lions did the Assyrian king demonstrate his force. I have mentioned some animals would be kept in private gardens and private zoos, and the reason behind this was, again, sending a message to the outer world. The king could not only kill the forces of evil, but tame them and make them docile, soft pets he ruled over. In ancient Mesopotamia, especially in Babylon and Assyria, the garden of the king was built with the intention of recreating the empire he ruled over, like a scaled world where everything was contained. And this is the reason plants and animals from all over the four corners of the Assyrian Empire will be brought to the capital and kept there. I'm going to show you a relief of a lion. So here you have a lion in a garden with some musicians, and you can see some birds. In the center you can see a particular type of tree, but then you see in the limit where the break is, there's another different kind of tree. That's a palm tree. So yeah, it's the propagandistic effort. I really like this one too. It's such an idyllic scenery. Although I'm not sure if I would be completely chilled having a glass of wine while there are lions and leopards hanging out around me. That is just me. So that is everything I have to tell you today, guys. This was my live stream about the Assyrian royal lion hunt. If you want, because I have a feeling that I showed the images a little bit too quick, so if you want, do you want me to show something on the screen? Do you want me to put up some other reliefs as we can discuss some artistic features? For example, the anatomy of the animals or the amazing, sick detail that the images have. So I didn't get images of Assurbanipal himself because I wanted to make the lions protagonist here, the animals, not actually the humans. So I didn't think there were, and also because I cannot put like all the images, I just cannot show all the images I would like to here. But I hope you enjoyed it. But let me tell you, if you ever go to the British Museum, please consider stopping 5 minutes to see the royal hunt in, I don't remember the whole, I mean, I know where it is, but I do not remember the name of the cell, which is the Assyrian Hall, but you know, it has a massive Lemassu door, so you cannot miss it. The detail on this relief is sick. It is on point on the garments, on the hairstyles, the earrings, the necklaces, even the bracelets, the weapons, the chariots, the horses. It is amazing. It's one of the most beautifully detailed things I've ever seen in my life. So, that I see there's questions. Again, if you have any other questions, just throw them to me and I will do my best to answer them. So, Lucas has, how often did the hunt happen? I don't know. I actually don't know, and we don't seem to have a register over that, because from sources we can accept it was a very popular sport because they put the effort to represent basically every single step of the journey, and we have tablets advertising hunts or explaining how the hunt were. So with all that information, we can understand it was popular and it was recurrently done and performed. How often? I wouldn't dare to give an answer here because I just don't know. I am not sure about that. No, I'm often. How often? I don't exactly know. Kiwi asks, was there a tradition of belief in lion shapeshifters like shamans in a lot of cultures that turn into leopards or jawas or whatever? So, in Mesopotamian mythology, gods are not shapeshifters. Not all the time. They have assistants, they have ministers, they have demons they control that can turn into other things, but not really. The shaman, right, so the shamanism, it was very powerful, and we can see the more we trace back in time, the more we can see how shamanism and animism, which is the belief in spirits, was very powerful in Mesopotamia, and especially in the area, like the northern area, closer to the border with nowadays Iran. It existed, definitely it was that. But as far as I'm aware, because now I'm citing by heart, but I almost sure that it was not such like a popular thing in Mesopotamia anymore. Possibly we have, for example, the shapeshifter is Enki, but Enki is a trickster, so it is his thing to do. I don't think there was such thing as shamans or the Galu, which are a type of demon. They normally change their shape to annoy humans, basically, but not that I'm aware. Normally everything has its shape, and if they turn to something else, it's because of a curse or because somebody has put a spell on them. Put a spell on you. Again, I am old. so yeah, that's basically it. Do you have, guys, any more questions or things you'd like to know? I like holding the cup against a clear background because you can see the skull, and I like it a lot. Just that's it. That's basically it. Definitely gonna make this one again, but I'm gonna let it cool down and put it in the fridge at least for 6 hours. So it's the nice and exact amount of cold that I like. So if there's no more questions, it's been a pleasure being here with you. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in with me. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope now you know a little bit more about such an important activity in ancient Assyria. Again, thank you to all the people that subscribe to the channel, and thank you to my patrons, Aina, Angel, Lucas, and David. Thank you so much for backing me up. And, oh, thank you. Oh, Aaron says, it was very interesting. Actually, what do you mean actually? You don't have faith in me, do you? So, thank you guys for coming. Thank you for always being here. I really enjoy making these things. And yeah, maybe one day we can make a really quick trip to the British Museum someday, so we can discuss the reliefs live. I would love to do that someday. I would really like that. I need to go back to London, hopefully soon-ish. And I will definitely go see these babies. So, thank you so much. Have a very nice week. If you want to keep up with the streams, next Monday, same time, we will be discussing something different. I don't know what yet, but we will. And yeah, be good, be nice, wash your hands and all that jazz. And yeah, stay safe. All right? So, thank you guys, to all of you. It's been a pleasure like always. Let's just go with some music because I like Cruel Angels thesis. Bye guys!